Good day, this is Jim Pytel from Columbia Gorge Community College, Renewable Energy Technology Program. This is the ET 123 Digital 3. Today we're going to have a discussion of flash memory, which is kind of a synthesis of the best parts of our RAM and ROM. If we remember right, our RAM is basically our random access memory. We can read to it, we can write to it, read from it, write to it. It's pretty fast, but our disadvantage is that it's volatile. Basically, it requires power at all times. A read-only memory, it's semi-permanent in nature. It's not volatile, but the disadvantage, it's read-only, it's slow, not necessarily easy to write to. Another advantage about ROM is that it is a little bit more compact than RAM, because if you remember right, we're using, the example I used in the lecture was fuses, but in actuality it's transistors, so just single transistor connections, whereas RAM, if we remember right, if it's SRAM, here I'll write down here, SRAM, it's a latch, which is a bunch of transistors. DRAM, it's a single transistor and capacitor. So ROM, slightly more compact than our RAM. Okay, so what about a combination of both RAM and ROM? Ideally, we want it to be cheap too. And that's exactly what flash is. It's taking the best of RAM and ROM, putting them together in one package. You wouldn't want to take the worst. That'd be a bad idea. You would want something volatile that you can read only, and it's slow and it's not easy to write to. You want to take the best. You want it to read, write. You want it to be fast, compact. You want it to be non-volatile, and top it off, you want it to be cheap. That's exactly what flash is. And what this gal here is holding is a 32 gig flash card. And if you've seen these you've all seen these before. The memory sticks, the little USB memory sticks that everyone's constantly losing. The little compact flash cards in digital cameras, SD cards in digital cameras, and some pretty high-end computers right now, some expensive computers, are actually using flash to replace magnetic hard drives. The one I'm thinking of is the MacBook Air, I think has just flash, no hard drive. So super compact. But you see what this gal's holding, it's a 32 gig flash drive. And I don't know if you guys were all there when I took apart that 20 gig iPod in lab. You know, in comparison, that 20 gig iPod drive was about that big and about that thick. You know, I'm trying to draw it to scale there. So, I mean, think about that. Like, that's 32 gig versus that's 20 gig, you know, being a magnetic. We'll go over magnetic drives later. But super compact, super cheap. And how flash does that, it's just a single transistor. It's not a latch, which is a bunch of transistors. It's not a capacitor and a single transistor. It's just a single transistor. And we got to delve into a little bit of ET 221 here a little bit. If you haven't taken the course, don't worry. It's not too terribly bad. But if we want this transistor to conduct from, let's say, this side to that side, we've got to apply a 1 on here, like a plus 5 volts. So we've got to apply voltage on there. Well, what's happening there is that's called a gate. So if you're applying a 1 on there, it means is basically you're attracting. Here, let's go ahead and draw the internal diagram. Okay, I've changed my mind about the internal diagram because this is not ET221. This is just digital. We don't really care about the internal workings of that transistor because I could easily spend like a couple hours on it because MOSFETs are my favorite things. So right now, let's just think about this. Is if this 1 is a plus voltage here, if there was already a bunch of electrons stuffed in here, you would require substantially more voltage to get it to conduct. So if there was already a bunch of electrons stuffed in there, it wouldn't conduct. Whereas if you just left it alone, you would conduct, and you're still applying that same voltage to that gate. Okay, this is basically, if there's a bunch of electrons in there already, that's a 0. And if there is not a bunch of electrons in there, that's a 1. It conducts as a 1. Not conducts, that's a 0. And how you do that is basically you're going to, this is the read process, by the way. Okay, where this is your row select, and here's your column. So when you've applied to a 1 to a row, the gate here, and your column is getting no current, you're getting a 0. If your column is experiencing current, you're getting a 1. Okay, so that's the read. To the right to, very similar, is let's say you want to write a 0, is basically you're going to provide an incredibly large voltage here, V right, to attract electrons. Whoops, as I'm drawing. So you've attracted electrons there, and then once you've written that 0 in there, you can read it as that. If you want to go ahead and write a 1 to it, there's no charge, no V right is added to there, so the natural occurring electrons will be appearing between those gates there. There's 1, and once you go up here to read this thing, when you place your V read, which is a lower voltage than your V right there, you can go ahead and conduct. You want to erase a 1, go ahead and put V right in there, attract the electrons there. You want to erase a 0 and put a 1 there. A sufficient positive enough voltage, V erase, is put here, and all those electrons get sucked out, and you're back in that spot. You could easily confuse the heck out of yourself about these things. Ultimately, all it is, it's a single transistor that's doing all this. And flash memory, like I said, is going to be one of those things that may eventually replace all magnetic hard drives. And you've seen with your USB memory sticks there, you can drop them, you can stomp on them, you can shake them around, when they're being accessed, whereas a magnetic hard drive, you wouldn't really want to do that. You want to be a little bit more gentle with those things. So flash memory has basically some of the advantages of RAM, ROM, plus it's pretty cheap. I think that's all I really want to discuss about flash memory before we go into magnetic memory and some memory expansion.